At Nedbank Private Wealth, we understand that real life, lived by real people, is seldom perfect. Mark is a successful businessman and single father of 3. He had always worked hard and tried his best to raise his children right. It was after Tammy met Paul that things started to go wrong. Paul was bad news, a gold digger, after Mark's business and Tammy's inheritance. And Tammy just couldn't see it. It was while Tammy and Paul were dating that Mark decided he wanted to leave the business to his son, Timothy. After all, Timothy deserved it. He'd been working in the business for years. Against her father's wishes, Tammy married Paul, even when she was told that she would be disinherited if she went through with the wedding. And as life would have it, father and daughter never mended their rift, and Mark was tragically shot and killed outside his business a few years later. Although Timothy was appointed as sole heir to the business, it was run as a sole proprietor. However, knowing Mark's online banking details, Timothy continued to run the business, allegedly on the basis that he was able to transfer funds from his deceased father's account. Timothy, still dealing with losing his father, hired a private investigator to help the police get to the bottom of his father's murder, whilst also trying to run the family business. It wasn't long before Timothy's siblings decided to open a case of fraud against him and the financial planner who had assisted Mark with his will, stating that the financial planner involved in taking instruction for the will convinced the deceased to draft the will in the manner it was drafted and did not present any alternatives, and that Timothy and the financial planner had committed some sort of fraud against the estate by having had access to Mark's online banking details. But what could have been done differently? Let's find out.
It is clear that Mark wanted to leave the business to his son, Timothy. There are products such as key person cover, buy and sell agreements, which Tim could have considered. It is essentially important for small businesses to have such policies, as the loss of a key person could result in the death of the business. This is a risk mitigating strategy which Timothy could have implemented. All of this can be discussed with our financial advisors. The fact that Mark amended his will for Timothy to solely inherit his business cannot be disputed. However, considering the fact that the business was a sole proprietorship, he could have considered changing the structure of the business during his lifetime to allow Timothy to become co-owner or sole director or member of the entity. This would ensure that he had access to the business accounts after the death of Mark, to allow for business continuity, such as paying of staff salaries, business expenses in the ordinary course. Insofar as the withdrawals by Timothy are concerned, a full and proper account of all the withdrawals made after the death would be required, as the executor would need to establish whether those funds were used in the pursuance of the business or not. Any funds used for personal use would be treated as an advance to his inheritance. We also understand from the story that Mark was tragically shot and killed outside his business, which means that we cannot rule out the possibility of the concept of bloedige hand or bloody hand. This refers to the person who caused the death of the deceased, whether intentionally or negligently, is regarded as unworthy to inherit from the estate. We note from the story that the relationship between Mark and his daughter was strained at best. Since Mark died of unnatural causes, administration of the estate would be delayed by the fact that the Master of the High Court would require a police report, which could take some time to be obtained, in order to register the estate and issue letters of executorship in favor of the nominated executor. The case opened by the sisters relating to the allegations of fraud could also have an impact on finalization of the estate.